Hi, welcome, welcome. There, maybe we have audio and video now that it's kicked in. Okay, this is an emergency briefing based upon some bad news that's coming over the wire. Okay, no teletype sounds? Florida, and we're going to call this one Sound Condition Lemon. Florida municipalities are being targeted apparently by ransomware. At least a couple now have been in the news. One significant one down in South Florida actually paid a ransom out of insurance. Apparently, they had some cyber insurance to cover that. Yet to be determined in the news from the news reports whether they actually got their data back. And there may be other municipalities, Florida and other, where that are being targeted because they are less funded and less aware of security, perhaps. And I know this from firsthand experience. So, anyways, but let me clarify that the condition lemon is lemon as in yellow, which is worse than condition lime, which is green, but not nearly as bad as condition Valencia. In other words, orange. You have to remember, we're down near Florida where everything is fruity. At least a pair of these municipalities have made the news because of their ransomware infections overtaking their operations. Ransomware, if you are not fully aware, is a type of malware. And malware is just all the bad stuff wrapped together without discriminating whether it's a worm or a virus or a Trojan. But malware of some sort that will infect your system and hold it for ransom. Sometimes this is called crypto ransomware because, obviously, as I just said, it encrypts your data and your databases, whatever you happen to have. So, and then holds it for ransomware. So you might hear the term crypto ransomware. Each is just synonymous or just as valid. And I'm writing from my notes that I quickly wrote together when I heard this on the new morning news. Let's start off with a little bit of definition. I gave you the definition of ransomware, and ransomware is categorized as an exploit of some weakness. And so, just to clarify what an exploit is, it's taking advantage of some weakness in the system. And in this case, most likely the first level of weakness is the people, because somebody probably clicked on phishing software that's embedded in an email. Okay, and so that's one of the more common ways for ransomware or any malware to get into the system is through a phishing, and there's various levels of sophistication, and I've seen a lot of them. The second type of weakness is a technical weakness, and that's where the software, the malware that was just engaged, embedded, downloaded, however, whatever word you want to use, to your system now takes care of attacks, some vulnerability or misconfiguration in the system itself. So there's the technical weakness, and things such as the email filters and other abilities that are within the system. Threat formally is the bad guys. Okay, it's some force acting against you. That's what we're going to use in context of what a threat is. And I'm saying this again just to be clear, because all these terms get knocked around, bounced around quite a bit. But the threat is the bad guys acting against you. The formula that you take is you take your vulnerability, which is V, and your threat, which is T, and you multiply each and times cost, so you get a formula. The simplest, least inclusive, least expansive formula is T times V times C. Now there are refinements on that. I'm just not going to get into the deep risk management formulas in this briefing. Okay, so I'm trying to be clear, concise, but also brief. You multiply your threat times your vulnerability times your cost, and you get the total number for your risk. So that's your simple risk in a nutshell. And like I said, that formula can include annual expectancy and other things depending on how refined and how granular you want to get. So that's the context that we're speaking of when I'm talking about threats and risk. Okay. So anyways, this exploit of ransomware is taking advantage of vulnerability or vulnerabilities, at least of which is the personnel clicking on an email and getting their system infected to the point that all their data is encrypted and not usable, even though it is still accessible and available, that is. I've personally experienced this in a Florida-based municipality, and it was a legal system organization. They dealt with, let's say, things like tickets and suits and so forth, all those kinds of things. And yet somebody in the organization clicked on an email that said, here's your invoice. And it was an attached file, probably a Word file that probably, as I recall, had a macro running inside of it. But the email was from someplace like Brazil or Italy and different places like that. So we stopped it, myself and with close coordination of the help desk, stopped it after only about 3 or 4 PCs. My estimate was about a $50,000 savings they would have been hit with damage in $50,000 level. By average industry standards of calculating that cost, you would have wound up with at least $250,000 just for my 1, 2, 3 day kind of event. Like I said, I'm only claiming 50. But for the value of the information that was in place there, it had to spread further and actually encrypted the databases that it was attacking. Could have been in the millions. Literally, because you're talking about people paying fines, paying restitution, court costs, legal fees, court, etc., etc., etc. Those have to be astronomical. That's why municipalities all over the United States have this thing called the clerk of court, okay, or some comparable organization. Anyways, so just going from this, trying to keep this brief because we're running about 7 minutes now, and my briefings can run up to 18 minutes. The shortest one is 4, but we're running about 7 now. As I said, usually it's by phishing email from some bizarre place that you never deal with. They've moved away from being just from Nigeria, by the way. So first line of defense there is to set up what's called a geofence, or some sort of geographical limitation on where things can actually be, emails will be delivered. If it's from Tanzania, if it's from Mauritania, if it's from somewhere, Zimbabwe, from Sumatra, tiny Borneo, little tiny countries which rarely ever have a presence in the United States, let alone in Florida. Well, then that's a good start. Now, public agencies, municipalities, etc., may be hesitant to put geofencing because they could potentially have somebody from somewhere, such as India or Tibet or whatever, Nepal, show up here in Florida. We have places that people come for entertainment, like Disney World, Busch Gardens, Miami Beach, Key West, you name it. There are places to go here that are of interest and make Florida the happiest place in the world. But, however, you need to be reasonable and in what you can reasonably normally be getting emails from. Doesn't mean, if you set up a geofence, doesn't mean that I'm suggesting that you set up a network disconnect, a reset, so that you never get a connection from Borneo or from Azerbaijan or Tajikistan. Okay, what I'm saying is that emails from those locations, from those domains within those locations, and from other suspect domains are not automatically delivered, that they are quarantined until they can be reviewed. Okay, and by review, that means they're scanned and checked for malicious intent or malicious content. Okay, and you have to remember that even though you have a signature, there is a gap between the day that this comes out into the wild or 2 days before the major antivirus vendors will have a signature for that. So you don't want to depend upon that 0 day hitting you. Okay, you don't want to depend upon the signature because something can come out before a signature is ready. You want to be ready for anything on any day. So anyways, you probably have some tech, and some of the larger locations have good tech and lots of good tech. The problem is that there's not enough people spending enough time tweaking those for your new events, for your zero-day attacks, okay, for the new malicious stuff that's coming out on a daily basis, okay. They're depending upon those signatures and when those signatures get updated. But the signatures might not be fast enough, so you have to be faster. And so you have to pay attention to those things, such as having a scan for specific types of malicious content within emails, okay? It may not even be considered malware. It might not even get to the point of being a zero-day yet because it's brand new, or maybe it's just targeted specifically at you, right? That's all, okay? They don't want anybody else. They want to know what you are doing today, and they want to get at your information, whether it's trying to keep a criminal out of jail or find out the list of who's on a jury or wipe out charges. And I'm going back to my history. Anyways, so those are the kinds of things you need to do, okay? And you know, that's not just more than keywords. You have to look at domains and with the content. Is it hunky? Is it wanky? You just kind of have to look at it with a second eye. And with respect to the opposite approach to geofencing, you might just want to sort of exclude from those geofences, from the geographic restrictions, the top 10 or top 20 or top 50 locations. Okay, guess what? Any place in the United States you accept. Okay, great. If you're in a United States organization, that is. And if you're outside of the United States, Canada, UK, France, etc., okay, then we're going to start worrying about you. Okay, and again, it's just basically looking on the options of likelihood. Okay, and then getting back to the trenches. Okay, in the trenches it's your people, your frontline staff. Maybe you've got a reception. Maybe you've got people emailing, you know, physical reception, or you've got people receiving emails. Those are the people, the first line of defense, and that's where the cracks are going to appear. So as I've already said, you know, you're looking for things like bad emails, malicious content within those emails. But as much as your tech is in place, you have to advance the awareness. More than just awareness, you have to be able to train and reinvigorate, retrain, remind people on a regular basis of what to look for. And if you've got bad emails, malware in emails that you've actually received and quarantined, use those as examples. Now, some organizations, there are actually some vendors, have some tech that they can put in place to do these kind of testing things on an automated basis, regular basis, and they will send emails that are phishing. And then, but instead of going to bad guys, it goes to them, or it goes to you, to your CISO, who will look at and see who actually clicked on it or who recognized that it was a phishing attempt. Those kinds of things. Now, if you don't invest in that kind of tech, that's probably software. There's a couple of vendors, one of them here in Florida, and I know these guys real well, that you might be able to do this to some extent on your own. Send out your own phishing emails, phishing-like emails to your people, and then have meetings with them saying, hey, guess what? Here's the raw numbers. Out of the 500 people we sent this to, 375 reported it as phishing, 100 reported it and deleted it, and then there were 25 of you that clicked on it. Bad, bad, bad. We're going to point you out next time. So that's a really easy exercise to do. You just have to have the dedication to actually do it. Coming up on 13 minutes or so, so we should be closing this down anyways in a couple minutes here. I have a list of my most popular sites. I'll list some of them. There's the ISC Internet Storm Center SANS. There's Threat Connect, Threat Post. IBM has their X-Force. All the vendors, all the security vendors like Symantec, McAfee, Norton, everybody, they'll have their security support centers, staff that you can ask questions or where they'll leave notes on things that they're worried about. SANS is one of the best ones. They also publish newsletters on a regular basis that talks about this, and there are other organizations also that do post on a regular basis. Since we're running close to 15 minutes now, I'm going to end my emergency briefing on this potential Florida disaster, and make sure that you return to your regularly scheduled program. However, we will, oh, I hope that got through there. Anyways, it's 15 minutes we're coming up on, and I've listed a few like SANS, ISC.SANS, the Storm Center, that is, IBM X-Force. There's a great number of other ones. Cisco has one. All the security vendors, antivirus vendors will have some blogs or places to find stuff. I mentioned Threat Post, Threat Connect, etc., and a few more that probably are stuck here in my mind that I'll come up with momentarily. I'll go ahead and post a list very shortly, post it out to the my Facebook, LinkedIn, as well as dropping a picture on the YouTube video channel that this is posted. But here it is, good protection, be safe, and if you got any problems, if you're in Florida and you wind up with problems, you know how to connect the Info Security Master. Talk to you soon.